Thank you for joining us. I'm Paul Wilson.
And I'm Chris Ehmke.
And this is Diesel Performance Podcast. Chris, we got a great show today. We're going to talk about buying a used diesel truck.
We get a bunch of calls. We get a bunch of guys that call in inquiring about what truck to buy, what to look for, what's going to suit their needs. What's crazy is Paul, the amount of time that we've been here, the truck market has become that much older, right? Like there's a lot of trucks in our careers here that were new that are now turning into 10, 11, 12-year-old trucks.
Yeah, it is wild to me. Like I remember when LMLs were out and I was first here, I was like, oh, this is the new truck. And now when you go to look at a 2011, you're like oh, fuck, do the math. It's 2023. This shit is old. This is old. So we'll get into it. We got a whole bunch of fun things to say about used diesel trucks and buying used diesel trucks. Before we dive in too far, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors. Huge sale going on right now over at Calibrated Power, home of DuramaxTuner.com. Chris, why don't you tell the folks a little bit about it?
Yeah, so we have a wide variety of product offerings from deals, sales on switch-on-the-fly tuning, tuning packs for pretty much all three RPOs, Duramax, Ford, Cummins. We're offering a transmission option, right? So the 5-speed trans from an 01 to 05, we have the option to upgrade it to a 6-speed. So we're doing a sale on 6-speed 01 to 05 trans trucks. We're offering a sale on the 6-speed conversion kit itself. And then we're offering a 10% off on all of our turbochargers. So our line of Stealth 64 and Stealth 67 G2 lineup.
That's right, man. Absolutely. It's a big sale. This is our busiest month of the year generally. If you're looking to get a deal on diesel performance upgrades, the time is now. Jump on over, give us a call. Chris, how can they get a hold of you?
They can get a hold of me. It's cmkey at DuramaxTuner.com or dial the main line 815-568-7920, extension 2121. And Paul, I just want to give a shout out. We've had some listeners reach out to me because we've been talking about this sale for the last few weeks. And I have had a couple of listeners reach out and take advantage of that stuff and, listen to the podcast. Love you guys. I have questions on my truck. So I'm glad to help where I can, whether it's answering questions, getting them set up with product, giving them, advice, glad to help any way I can on that.
Should we just throw a crazy promo out here without me having it approved by anybody right now and give away a Diesel Performance Podcast t-shirt? I
think we should. If you place an order with me, right, or you do an order, I will put a Diesel Performance Podcast t-shirt in the box.
While supplies last, I'm not going to reorder quantity. I got limited quantity. Give a call directly over to Chris. Let him know you listen to the show. Let him know you want a free shirt. He'll throw it in the box. I'm not going to ask anybody for approval for this. We'll just ask for forgiveness if I get yelled at later.
That's our motto.
I love it.
Next in line, Exergy Performance, right? Your one-stop shop for anything common rail injection. So whether it's, stock replacement or performance, Exergy can definitely get you taken care of. I know for myself, I've made the switch. I use their winter blend additive in my TDI. And now that the weather is starting to kind of take shape, I'm re-ing up on the summer blend, so I have my truck and the car all taken care of. So, shout out to those guys.
Ready to roll, absolutely. XTP, your one-stop shop for diesel performance. Check them out. They got our Stealth Boost testers and switches up on their website. Go ahead and jump over to xtp.com and get those ordered today.
And last but not least, WC Fab, right? Whirly Custom Fab.
I love working with Jason and the boys.
What's really cool is I was talking to one of the guys in R&D the other day, and Jason, WC Fab's 21 shop truck, their L5P is here getting some things done to it. And there was some discussion about getting into the newer Ford stuff. Yeah. So, it's cool to see the, innovation and Jason wanting to grow into certain segments. So, you Ford guys out there with your Super Duties, be on the lookout. There's going to be some cool stuff. I'm sure there's going to be piping and intakes and traction bars and all the crazy colors that those boys offer. So, there's going to be some cool things in the Ford lineup, I would assume, in the future.
That's it, man. Absolutely. Well, hey, let's dive into our topic today, buying a used truck. Excuse me. I want to say the most notable memory I have of buying a used diesel truck, Chris, is when I was very, very new here at Duramax Tuner. Okay. Nick, the owner, found a used LB7 for like $4,000 in Indiana. Okay. Now, at the time, we were a smaller shop. I don't even think we owned a trailer at the time. So he sent me with some friends of mine that owned a towing company and a flatbed and paid them to deadhead out to north central Indiana to look at this used truck. And I show up to this LB7. The list, this is Craigslist days, so the listing post is like, ran and drive last time we had it on the road, no known mechanical issues, $4,000, need cash fast, first one to show up gets it. So like I drove out that morning, like I saw it posted, like 9 a.m. and I was on the road by like 10. We get there, and it was one of the saddest moments when I actually got up to the truck. Asked them to not have it running. No worries. It doesn't run, it turns out.
Don't worry.
It doesn't run.
You.
3 of the tires are flat. It's in the middle of a field. Like it's back off the lot, like off the property, like towards the brush line.
This is a private sale.
Yeah,
correct?
This is a private sale. I'm like, man, well, even if the tires are fucked, like tires ain't bad for $4,000 at the time. I mean, this is when LB7s are selling it 10, 15 grand easy for one with 100,000 miles. Like, you could get one cheap if it was a ton.
We're thinking
but
this is 2013, right? So we're talking one of these trucks 10, 12 years old at this point.
Right. So they were still bringing in $1. Man, but went through everything you would check on the side of the road, and every single thing turned out horrible. There wasn't a good sign of life in the whole damn truck.
The truck just ran into the ground.
Yeah. So I had to turn around, drive back empty-handed. It's also one of the only times I've ever gone out to look at a used vehicle and not made some sort of offer. Yeah. It's like usually if you're walking away, you might as well offer them $100 to get it off their property.
Right. Of course.
I wouldn't take $100 to remove this thing from their property.
Oh. I mean, it's not like you're close to home either, That's a big risk that you have. I've had a couple encounters personally with my own stuff where, I bought one truck from Texas and one truck from Tennessee in the past, and you don't have the ability to see it firsthand, so it is a sight unseen. But now you're relying on the seller and their description, or if I'm going to make the travel, I usually try to get a lot of in-depth photos.
Right.
A lot of the driver's seat, steering wheel, just the driver's space, and then all the other good stuff, the engine bay, the undercarriage, just exterior. Right. I'm not. Depending on what I'm looking for, if it's a personal truck, I don't want it all scratched up. I don't want it all dinged up and dented. But I've always believed that, if the driver's seat, if the driver cockpit area is in good running condition, it's all in good shape, then the truck has probably been a little bit more well kept.
Right.
And that's been something my dad taught me years ago when looking at used vehicles. It's something that I've always had in the back of my mind, and it's only burnt me once or twice.
God, I remember my dad's advice was check the ashtray. If they use the ashtray, the car's a piece of shit.
Yeah,
this is back when cars had ashtrays, right? But like that was growing up. That was our thing on
beaters. That's a true statement.
Yeah.
That's a true statement. I took my mom, not a couple years ago now, we were looking for a newer SUV for her, and we found this listing local, super, super nice. The vehicle was awesome, like real pretty. It was a Jeep, nice 4-door Jeep. And we get there, we go look at it. Guy offers to take you for a drive, and he's got a pack of cigarettes in his hand, and he smoked 2 cigarettes while we were walking around the outside, right? And it dawned on me, I'm like, what if? Didn't look inside the car. Get in the car, just reeks of an ashtray. There's still butts sitting in the center, center part of where that vehicle didn't have an ashtray, but he had like an ashtray, like a
in the cup holder. Yeah.
And I'm just like, Mom, for that, I'm out. Like, this isn't the vehicle, right? Yeah. For that reason. But there are a couple cigarette, holes in the seats and stuff like that. Like,
a long-time smoker. So, I know. Yeah.
It's all in your voice. The radio voice. I'm just joking.
I don't know about that.
I'm just joking.
No, but I think thinking back to the headliner burns and the
it happens.
Like all that shit.
Happens.
Yeah, you end up with it.
But
used trucks, there's some things that I think mechanically you can go through that are check. I think one of my favorite ones, if we're just going to get into like top piece of advice thing I check on every diesel truck, I would check flipping the oil cap over and seeing if we got blow by.
Yeah,
that's a favorite.
That's a good one. I think having the truck be cold when you get there is a really good indication of, okay, how does the cold start take place? How does the injector, fire up, that kind of thing. To your point, the oil cap, that's a big one. Checking the oil, right? Something so simple as checking your oil. I like to get underneath. I like to get underneath the truck. I like to see, okay, do you have oil weeping from, the front of the motor where your front timing cover and your oil pan meet, or the oil pan where it mates to, the upper oil pan if it's a Duramax, or to the block, or, to the rear, right, where the rear, the rear bell housing adapter plate and, the oil pan all meet. So those are some of the things that I always like, that's like the bare minimum that I do.
Yeah.
So, those are some things I always look at. I think of like one of my close buddies. He now lives in Kentucky, right? And he wanted to buy a bucket truck, Right? He wants to get into, he's worked in the
like
field.
tree trim and bucket truck.
Yeah, a tree trim and bucket truck.
Okay.
But in his line of work, what he's trying to get into is he wants to do like storm chasing, right? And go help, rebuild areas after storms have come through.
Okay.
And if you have a bucket truck, there's more opportunity for you than there would be not having the bucket on the truck or not having a truck for that matter.
Sure.
So he tells me he finds this truck down in Central Florida, right? It's a 2012 Ram, $70,000 truck, right? 2012, I think 70 grand, it's a lot of money, but it's got the bucket, it's got the hydraulic, like it's set up, right? It's what you would think a utility truck would be, right?
Yeah.
And he calls me up, he goes, "What do I do?" I'm like, "Well, I'm going to overnight you one of my Easy Links. I'm going to get it to you." I was like, "And you're going to take that with you, and you're going to go down there, and I'm going to walk you through some of the diagnostics." Now, us being in the business that we're in, we know some of those weak links. Like, we know what an LML weak link would be. We know what some of the L5P stuff would be. And we know what some of that Cummins stuff is.
Yeah.
Turbocharger, actuator, vane position, some of those. So I was like, all right. Like, my buddy's name's Nick. I'm like, "Nick, you're going to go there. The truck's not going to run. I'm going to have you plug in. I'm going to look for stored codes right off the bat. After that, we want to start the truck. We want to get it up to operating temp. We want to check the oil. We want to check these things. But then we're going to go and we're going to log the truck. We're going to watch what the vane position actual desired. We're going to check these things. We want to do a wellness check.
Yeah.
This isn't some low mileage truck. This is a 150, 160,000 mile truck. The truck's been used. There's a reason that it was for sale, right? There's a reason that it's at a lot. And, we went about it that way.
Well, I think this brings up a couple of good points. There's your basic spot check, things you could look at with your eyes and tell if there's a problem. You do got to know where to look in some general sense. But if you're out buying, if you're going to spend more than $10,000 on a vehicle, you probably should educate yourself a little bit about it. So hopefully if you're listening to this show, you're already past that point of, all the visual checks to make. There's a big difference between a scan tool and a data logger.
Yeah.
And I think this is where, like, if you're an advanced mechanic and you have a very expensive, Snap-on Solstice or
Home Run,
something like that, you already know about this. Yeah. This is like kind of beneath what your skill level is. However, if you're just a guy at home and you're thinking about buying your first diesel truck and you're going to go spend 20, 30, 40, 50 grand on it, buying God, I think all of them are okay. You do got to know the vehicle you're going to look at to know which tuning hardware is a good data logger for you.
And I think
but there is something available for all of the platforms. And if nothing else, a CTS 3 monitor is probably your best thing to go with you. If you got a buddy who has a CTS monitor, just borrow it.
No, I mean, I think if you're an entry level, this is your first diesel truck, like a lot of this stuff, you kind of learn over time. Like you're probably not going to have these opportunities to have these components, or more importantly, know what you're looking at. If that's the case and it's a used vehicle, maybe it's your best opportunity to take it to the local diesel shop or repair facility in your area to do a once-over. In our line of work with what we do, we have groups of friends that buy used trucks and they use us, and they like, "Hey, what can you help me with? This is what I'm looking for." And we're usually glad to help.
Do you know how many LB7s I've data logged at 11 o'clock at night on the side of a road in a farm field because one of my buddies was looking at buying one, and you're just like, yes, all of the injectors look like they're bad. Yes.
Yep. Or I had my one neighbor ask me if I had a used car lot next door because I would have friends come over to plug into their truck and this and that, and there'd be different trucks coming in and out, and they're like, "Do you even own a vehicle? Like, what? How many vehicles do you have?" And it's like, "No, my buddy had this issue and this buddy had that issue," right? Yep. But checking, what are some of the bare minimum things, right? We talked about vane position, right? We talked about the vane cycling on the turbocharger. I think any of your newer modern diesel pickup truck, that's going to be a shoo-in. And then fuel pressure. A lot of these newer trucks, a lot of these trucks have CP4 pumps. There's the plagued CP4 question, or we talk about balance rates on injectors for injector health. These are all things that any of your simple scan tools, like an Easy Link, like an EFI Live AutoCal, like an Edge Insight monitor, would give you that ability to do.
Yeah.
And it allows you to be put at a little bit more of an ease of saying, okay, I'm buying a good one.
Well, yeah. I mean, listen, like you're going to have to repair your used diesel truck at some point. The question is, how long are you going to get before you have to start putting money into repairs.
And
right?
they get expensive.
Yeah, very. So you want to avoid the biggest cost and the most problematic thing with your truck first.
Yeah.
If you're looking at a 6-liter, a Power Stroke 6-liter, you're going to really pay a lot of attention to the coolant and the oil.
You're going to be paying attention to
crucial for that truck.
Any diesel, right?
Yeah,
you're going to be, as we're talking, as you bring up a great point, as you're talking about blow by and you're talking about, the fuel, the oil, I pay a lot of attention to the coolant reservoir.
Yeah.
Is there black soot and dirt and debris in the coolant reservoir? If that is the case, or chances are.
Same thing if the coolant looks brand new and fresh, like they just put it in before you showed up. That's always like hey, let's work this test drive extra hard. So I want to see what happens.
Let me ask you this, Paul. You're looking for a Duramax, Power Stroke, Cummins, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's pretty simple across the board. And you go and you open up the hood and you open up the overflow for your coolant, and you see a black ring in the inside, right? A black, it looks like dirt. It literally looks like muck and dirt.
Oh.
Right? The coolant doesn't look terrible, but again, there's muck and there's dirt on the side of the tank. What do you think that would be?
I mean, my first, because I am definitely on the pessimistic side when it comes to used vehicles, is I think that I'm going to have oil in my coolant or fuel in my coolant, and that I have a blown head gasket potentially or some other cross-contamination issue.
Now, the fuel that you're referring to, that would be more of like the exhaust gas, right? The carbon, right, has been circulated. Yeah. I agree, like 100%. That's usually what that indication would be, and it's possible, right?
Yeah.
Like it happens.
Yeah. It's and I don't want to scare everybody to death that if the coolant tank isn't perfectly clean, it's fucked, right? So this is where I think either one of us would go into. We need to examine this further, or this is a strong negotiating point for the vehicle. Examining it further can be tough sometimes. I've seen head gaskets that are problematic, are leaking, but maybe don't have every classical sign of leaking. I've definitely seen fuel contamination that really only shows itself after you've worked the truck for a while, leaking injectors and things like that, especially on older, like 5.9.
Or in the LBZ LMM world, right, where injectors become a little bit more tired, but you wouldn't know it unless it was hot and under a load.
There you go.
We see that in the 5.9s. We see that in some of the 6.7s. Notorious in the LMM, LBZ, and even the LOI trucks.
Yeah. So this is where fluid is so important. It tells you so much, where it's not just how hard has the truck been worked. It's looking at the fluids, and you can send out for oil analysis and different things like that I think is a really, really good idea. Sometimes it's not practical. Like if you drove 4 hours to the state, to the next state over to go look at a vehicle, you're probably not going to take an oil sample and send it in.
Right. But you're also not going to be like, I remember the truck in Tennessee that I picked up. I had asked the seller to send me a couple photos. I got 100 photos.
Yeah.
Or my 0759, when I bought that was a Texas truck, and the gentleman lived in the northern Wisconsin. He was a retired hot shotter. So the truck lived its whole life in the South. He drove the truck up north to retire. The truck sat in a garage. The truck, I mean, you remember the truck, it was very clean. And when I started questioning him on that, his rebuttal to me was, "What's your email? I'll just send you some photos." And I mean, I don't think the photos to this day have uploaded fully, because that was how many photos he sent. And he was a man of his word through and through. Like, that truck was for a 350,000 mile truck, there's a lot of risk involved, and that truck did not disappoint when I drove. And that was an 8-hour drive to go get that thing. You're not going to just go and drive 4 or 5 hours sight unseen, for something, No.
I mean, not at the point that you're worried about your used diesel truck, right? So fluid's really important. I love some of your notes about the interior, checking the interior. I think that's a good one. For me, I'm the worst when it comes to inspecting interiors. I usually spend so much time looking at the outside of the truck and talking about what do the gauges say and what does the data log say, that I'm really bad about looking for major interior flaws. I bought a truck one time with a carpeted dash, never lifted the carpet.
Was it a Dodge?
It was a Ford. It was the 7.3.
No kidding.
It was the 7.3. Okay. It wasn't bad underneath. Like this is one where I didn't get fucked. But I did feel dumb 3 months later. My girlfriend, now wife, was in the truck, and she goes, "Have you ever looked under here?" And I said, "No." Just like because I'm not good about paying attention to the detail of lifting up the carpeted dash to see how does the dash look underneath. It wasn't like totally destroyed or anything. But yeah, I was like, oh, this is one of those that I think having two people when you go to look at a truck is crucial.
You just got in my head, because that is something that I was just going to say is crucial. I have had a couple of friends, over the years when I go to look at something used, if I don't know the seller or anything like that, you try to bring someone along, because their checklist and their thought process is different than yours. And between the two of you, you can checklist, the entire vehicle from front to back.
Right.
There's been a couple of things, I bought a vehicle. I'll be very transparent. This is a rookie move, and I've been doing this for as long as I have. I bought a Volkswagen one time, a TDI, and I thought I was, getting the deal of a lifetime. Super excited. I was just excited to get my hands on this particular vehicle without even realizing the shortcomings of the vehicle. I got the vehicle home, realized the vehicle was fully deleted, had no idea. Right? And that brings me into another topic of discussion is we've seen this influx of vehicles and dealers that take in vehicles, right? And there's been this thing for a while where dealers don't sell emissions off vehicles, they can only be emissions on. And Paul, we've seen over the years that not necessarily be true. Some dealers will take in vehicles and resell them. So we'll have guys call in and be like, oh, I bought this truck. I'm looking for tuning. I'm looking for this, or I'm looking for that. Or, hey, I took it to go get some work done. They returned it back to stock, and now the truck won't run. I never realized that it was deleted or was emissions on or whatever. And I think back to when I bought my Volkswagen that one time, it's years back. I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, damn, I've been there. I did that, and it was something so rookie, such a rookie move that you don't think about.
Yeah, well, I think on the TDI, that's such an easy one to overlook as well, because even an emissions-equipped TDI is still pretty rattly. So the sound isn't so far off that it is on like a Duramax or something like that.
What is funny with that though is I remember noting to the seller, wow, this has a lot more space than the Jetta I've had. I can see the downpipe. What people that aren't in the Volkswagen world don't know is the filter sits off the back of the fucking turbocharger, right? Like, it just was one of those. I went myself. I didn't bring a friend. It was dark out. It wasn't, it was just, I was in that moment, and it is what it is. But you'll get a lot of guys where, they buy these trucks secondhand and they don't know what they're necessarily buying, because they might not have necessarily have done their research before purchasing. They just got so excited that I've always wanted a Dodge Cummins diesel. I always wanted a Chevrolet Duramax 2500. Now here's my opportunity to get that crew cab short bed truck on 33s, and I'm not going to pay attention to anything else because it's the sex that sells. That's what I want. Then they get the truck and they realize, oh shoot, I bought a truck that isn't what I thought I was buying because I got so excited about that initial purchase.
Yeah, absolutely. I also wonder how many dealerships know what emissions equipment is.
I question
It's like
that.
If you really don't deal with diesels on a regular basis. When I was real young, 18, 19, I worked at a car dealership for a few months or a year or whatever, and we had one diesel on the lot. It was, God, this is 05, so it was an LLY. It was a brand new truck. I didn't know anything about diesel at the time. Nobody there knew anything about diesel. I ended up selling the truck to a farmer who came in, and he knew everything about it and was like telling me all about all the details of the truck. I'm like, yeah, cool. Okay, so the turbo's like different than the older ones. All right, man. Yeah, let's get you written up. Can you finance this thing? Yeah. And that's about how much I think everybody at our dealership knew. Was just like, hey, don't put regular gas in this.
Right. No, I mean, I think about the early 2000s, that was exactly like my dad had a couple landscape trucks, and that was exactly it. Like, I knew nothing about diesel then. Yeah. But it was just, don't put gas in it.
Yeah. So I wonder about like when dealerships take in trucks on trade now, we know some of the like diesel specialty used lots around us.
Totally
they won't
different
take
situation.
Deleted trucks in, and they're real finicky about it. I also wonder, how many of these trucks get deleted? Somebody slaps emissions equipment on it, drives it to get the readiness monitors off, and drops it off at the dealership. It's like, I've seen that go wrong, horribly wrong, many times.
I've seen, there's a couple guys that have been looking for trucks out this way, and, I've always had that fear if you're buying something like new, right? I was 15 plus, let's say, or, 07 and a half plus. What they started doing in some of the newer, like more of the Rams that I deal with, is they put marker tamping paint on all of the connections for all the emissions. Well, that's usually a good telltale sign of, okay, has this been manipulated? Has it been messed with?
Yeah.
And if the tabs are broken, like in the 19 plus Rams, everything is tabbed over. So the only way to remove it is to bust the tabs,
Right.
So it's a good way to say, okay, has this truck been emissions off and then it got reverted back to stock?
Yeah.
I've ran into some of those horror stories.
Sure.
I've ran into guys where they purchased a truck during all the the COVID stuff going on. Can't get trucks are inflated,
double
in
the
pricing.
price. Yeah.
And then they go and they buy this truck, and the truck is just a paperweight. Like, they knew nothing about the background of the truck, and the dealer took it, they slapped everything back on, or they took the truck in on trade with everything slapped back on. They didn't know what they were buying.
Yep. Yeah, it's tough out there. God, some of the advice to avoid stuff. I like what we've given so far, right? Check the interior,
Well,
bring
of
a
course,
friend.
it's our advice. Come on.
What do you think is key? What's something that you learned the hard way?
So for me, I would say a couple things that I learned the hard way. That Volkswagen experience, that was probably one of the tougher pills for me to swallow.
Yeah.
Years ago, granted, I had a lot more time on my hands and had a lot less to lose. But I found the Craigslist era. I found a Craigslist ad. We're in Northern Illinois. This was in southern Minnesota. But they had a couple of first gens on the property. It was like an estate deal, and they wanted them gone. The photos on the Craigslist ad looked so nice, like cab and a half long bed, 4-wheel truck, and then a regular cab, 2-wheel drive truck, like score of a lifetime. Me and a buddy followed each other up there tandem, one with a car dolly, one with a trailer. We had our sights on buying these trucks. We get there. Now, the seller never sent us any photos outside of what the ad showed. Okay. We got up there. The ads were sold as rust-free units, running, driving. One truck wouldn't run. One truck, the bed sides were completely detached from the front of the bed.
Yeah.
Just rotted out. And that one would run, but every time you would start it and go drive through the parking lot, or the driveway or the lot area where it was parked, trans fluid would just start pissing out the underneath of the truck.
Oof.
So for me, I learned at that point that, okay, if I'm going to buy something out of state or, a couple hours away, I want in-depth photos in that moment. And it was shortly after that I bought, my 07 5.9 truck, where I learned from my mistake. Right?
Yeah.
I learned from that. I was able to get all the in-depth photos. The seller was more inviting to send me the photos than what I was demanding, and that's usually a good sign. Not you having to chase them down for the information, chase them down for the photos, because I tend to feel like you're hiding something at that point.
Right.
So I always say, kind of get the vibe of the seller, kind of feel them out on why they're selling something, what they're selling it for, and then some additional pictures, some more intricate photos of the vehicle or the platform that you're trying to buy, so you know what you're getting yourself into.
I'm going to tell you about the hardest time I got fucked buying a vehicle.
Okay.
Traded. I traded. Okay, so I had some extra cash. I went and I bought a 85 Mustang with a 5-speed, 5.0 5-speed.
Yeah.
It was beat to the point that, like, I didn't have a parking brake. I had a block of wood, but it was the same block of wood that propped up the driver's seat.
Oh, wow. So this is like teenage, college
$1,500.
years, like Paul era.
Mid-20s.
Nice, solid.
I was working here.
Oh.
So this is within the last 10 years.
Nick didn't like you.
Nick loved this Mustang. Loved it. He thought it was the coolest thing I could have ever done. I'm like, all right, cool. The Mustang's dumb. My dog barely fits in it. My girlfriend won't ride in it because I can't drive it without dumping the clutch and being stupid. I don't think I stalled it as much as I just burned through a set of tires in like 45 days, but whatever. I'm like, cool, I'm going to trade it. Everybody's talking about trading on Craigslist these days, so I'm going to trade it. Find a guy with a roughly, I don't remember the year exactly, like a 91 square body GM 1-ton regular cab with a fiberglass plow and the fancy controller.
Okay.
Mint. Truck is fucking, for what it is, like, it is mint. Dude's like, yeah, I want to trade for the Mustang. So I drive over to McHenry, right across from the outdoor theater.
Okay.
Pull in his driveway. He pops the hood, blah, blah, blah. He's like, yeah, you can drive it. I got to get rid of this thing. Big, long, dramatic story. I jump in the truck. He jumps in the Mustang. He rips it around the block. He comes back. He's like, yeah, let's do it. I'm like, cool. He's like, oh, hey, did you just add coolant to this thing? Because I noticed there's coolant like on top of the block. And I'm like, oh, yeah, dude. Yeah, totally. Like, I just topped it off before I left Union. No, I absolutely had not. That just was pissing coolant at this point.
Oh, wow.
Potentially from the drive there that I beat the fuck out of it. So anyways, karma comes back to you. Because then when I go to trade this truck away, I find a guy with a 2-door Tahoe.
Oh.
And I'm like, I love 2-door Tahoes.
Right.
There's nothing ever been manufactured that is cooler than a 2-door Tahoe. And this is a 6.5. And I'm like, perfect. I work at Duramax Tuner for 60 days at this point. I definitely need a diesel. And I mean, a 6.5 is close enough. It's a GM diesel. Right. It's still cool.
So you were so new at the company that you didn't know that the 6.5 wouldn't be supported?
I was told. I just didn't want to hear it.
Gotcha. Okay.
I was just like, yeah. That's cool for you guys who have money. But I'm broke. This is cool. I have another vehicle at the time. It's not like this is my only vehicle. The other vehicle's been smashed into a tree at this point, but it still drove. So whatever. So I find this guy. This guy's awesome. He sends me tons of pictures right away. He's super attentive. He wants to get on the phone and talk. I'm a talker. He's a talker. We seem like, oh, we're buddy. He's like, dude, I'm even going to do you a favor. I'm going to drive to you because I'm in central Illinois. It's 5 hours away. He's like, I'm going to drive to you. And I'm like, perfect. Bro, if a 6.5 can make it 5-6 hours, whatever, up from central Illinois, this is a good, reliable truck. Right. I should do this deal.
Right.
Shows up with it on a trailer.
Oh.
Unloads it in front of my house. I go out. He's like, yeah, man, no, it's just easier. I figured I wasn't sure how your truck was going to drive or if it could handle a long trip like that. Blah, 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 blah. Just thought I'd do you a favor. I'd trailer it up here.
So in the meantime, you had this regular cab and it drove fine.
No, it was perfect. There was absolutely no problem with it. I was just like, oh, I really love 2-door Tahoes.
Okay.
So I test drive the Tahoe. And I mean, I got on it, and I took it to the shop, and I had our mechanic at the time take a look at it, and he's like, yeah, I mean, it's a 6.5, but it's fine. There's nothing that stands out as horrible with it. He's like, oh, look, they even did the PMD reroute.
Okay.
But I didn't look to see where the PMD was mounted, and I didn't drive it long enough for the truck to get really hot. I just kind of drove it around for 5 minutes. I had the mechanic look at it, so it sat on a rack for 30 minutes. I drove it for another 5 minutes. I went back, was like, yeah, let's trade. And then I went to drive to the town 10 minutes away the next day, but I let the truck idle outside because it's fall time.
Yeah.
So I let the truck idle for 20 minutes, and then I go down and I jump in. And I'm like, oh, man, it is warm in here. It's nice and toasty. And I back it up, and it dies. And every single day after that I owned that vehicle, it died while driving for one reason or another. The PMD, it turns out, had not been rerouted to where you reroute PMDs to the bumper or the top of the intake or anything like that. This asshole rerouted his PMD to inside the cab directly in front of the heat vent on the driver's side. You can't make up the stupidity of this. You can't make it up. Then the starter goes out, and it's not where the starter mounts. It mounts to the bottom of the block on those, but the corner of the block was fucking missing, Chris. I mean, it was missing. I mean, you're like, Paul, what do you mean? It's a block. It can't. No, there was a chunk of the aluminum block not there. And instead, there's a long threaded, I can't even get through this without tying. There's a long threaded bolt, a long threaded pipe with nuts and bolts welded on top and bottom to pinch the starter to the block around this missing piece where the fourth bolt was supposed to connect. So I go and I buy a Napa starter. They're like, do you want the expensive, nice Napa one or this shit one? I was like, bro, give me the shit one because I'm fucking smart and you're not going to upsell me.
Right.
You're not going to take advantage of me. So I went home and it failed 3 days later. So I had to go and buy the Napa one, which then they're like, oh, don't worry, this has lifetime warranty. So if this happens again, you're covered. Well, you know what you really don't want to do is replace a starter on this truck every 6 days, which is the longest it was ever not broken down, was 6 days. I could never be so mad at somebody in my life. I had this guy.
But you were mad at yourself.
I was mad at myself. Yeah. I really wanted to just, I don't know, swat this guy. Yeah. Like, I was ready to dox somebody. Like, I was so screwed. And, like, if I would have just been honest with that guy when I traded the Mustang for the 1-ton.
You don't think karma would have got me?
I don't think karma would have got me. I think I would have been smarter than trading for the 6.5.
I don't have anything horrible like that.
Yeah.
Like the worst thing is I drove to Minnesota.
Right.
Like, that sucks.
Yeah,
I feel bad for you.
It was a brutal lesson. I mean, this is 10 years ago, so don't feel too bad.
What the listeners don't know about this aftermath was that at the time you were trying to trade that off.
Yes.
Through Craigslist.
Yes.
And you found a unique, one of a kind KTM orange 12 valve. No, Mako. It was Mako. Mako paint job. I probably find the receipts.
Looked rattle can.
It was a Mako KTM orange, 12 valve Cummins, 95 regular cab, all the bells and whistles, had an automatic trans. And you tried trading the Tahoe for it.
It was a pile of trash that was listed on Craigslist and willing to trade. And I sent a text.
Yeah, you did.
Said, hey, want to trade for an awesome, amazing, one-of-a-kind, truly unique two-door Tahoe so you could be cool.
Right.
And this fucking moron who owns the truck, the 12 valve, is like, no, I'm too good for you. I was like, oh, okay, that's odd.
I'm pretty sure there was a fuck off in there at some point also. Like, there was one of us. But what's funny is 6 months later, I started with the company, right? So I start with the company.
I hate this story so much.
And we're exchanging phone numbers because we were going to start working out at the local gym together.
Yeah.
And you take my number in your phone to find out that I was the seller of the KTM Orange 12 valve.
It just proves what I knew since the first day they hired you at Duramax Tuner. It's like, I'm not going to like this guy.
So don't be shitbags to people that you try to buy stuff online. You never know if you're going to be coworkers with them.
Yeah.
You know?
You never know.
You never know.
Don't be shitbags. All right.
Well,
I don't think I could give any better advice, and there are no better stories that we could share. No. Guys, for today, this has been Paul Wilson.
And Chris Ehmke.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us today, guys. This has been Paul Wilson.
And Chris Ehmke.
Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you for joining us. Yeah, no, hit it.